Hi, Linda. How are you? It's good to see you.
Hey, Hugo, I'm doing well. Good to see you too. You're looking good.
Oh, thank you. You too. And I really appreciate that you're with me and Destino today. I really wanted to talk about and then celebrate the work that you've done on relationship goals, which is coming out pretty soon. But before that, would you be able to start with your name and what you do?
Sure. I'm Linda Mendoza, and I'm a TV and film director.
Great. I really was interested before we get started to know what made you want to work in entertainment.
Well, that's the funny thing about me is that, I didn't initially want to work in entertainment. I was all about the record business. And that's why I came to California to work for a record company. And then, when that whole world started to change, I basically fell into TV. I became a page at Metro Media Channel 11.
Yeah, and along this path, did you have any mentors?
It took a while to get like I think a mentor in production, but people were really supportive of me. I ended up growing very quickly at Metro Media. I jumped in to help schedule the production guys when the woman who did that's mother's passed, and I said, "Oh, I can do that," and I just popped right in and took over for her after one afternoon of figuring out what it was that she did. And then when she came back, there was an opening in the engineering department. So I hopped on that and I did that for a couple of years. And the beauty, I think, of those jobs was that I really got to learn what does it take, production and technically to put on a show. Because I would schedule the camera operators, the sound, the technical directors. When I worked in the production side, it was like who was putting up the walls, for the next show and breaking down. And so I really learned a lot about the makings of what it takes to put a show up.
Yeah, and that's so important to be able to see the big picture and see how you fit into these projects and also what drives you and what inspires you and how you want to contribute.
Yeah, I mean, like I knew really nothing about how those shows, how you did put up a show or how do you shoot a Dodger game and that kind of thing. So I did really learn a lot there. But then I got anxious and wanted to, move into production because I saw what people were doing within the shows. And that's what really like, oh, I think I want to do that. But you know how it is sometimes with big companies, they don't allow you to move up. They like you where you are. So I actually had to quit my job to get another job. And I ended up getting a great gig with a commercial director. So I was his assistant, but because I had been booking crews at Metro Media, I would book the stages, the crews for us. I would be on the shoot, taking all the time code and keeping track of the shots that he liked. And then I would go to post, and then we would deliver like 10-second commercials, 30-second commercials. So I really learned a lot from Dick. Dick Darley was his name, and he was a major blessing in my life. And I learned all about negative spacing because I didn't go to school for film, so I had no
Yeah.
idea, because he was very aware of negative space. Excuse me. He was very aware of negative spacing because in commercials you have to put graphics, which is what you do, so you understand like where is it sitting in the frame. Is it upper right? Is it lower left? Like, and where's the space for it? So it was kind of cool.
And what would you say is one of those life-changing moments that you experienced that changed your path?
Well, I would say that probably, just falling into the gig at Metro Media was a life changing experience. Getting the job with Dick was a life changing experience. But then I ended up through the lighting designer on the commercials. He introduced me to a man, Bruce Gowers, who is famous for directing the Bohemian Rhapsody video for Queen. And he had just come to America to start his career here. And he hooked me up with him and I became his assistant. And that I think is what really cemented my journey in television. Working as his production assistant, production associate, moving on to be his AD. I was the assistant director on big shows like the Video Music Awards for like 8 years. I did the Billboard Music Awards. We did big, huge concerts together, Men at Work up in Berkeley, and a lot of comedy specials for HBO. And that really opened up my career because I ended up there was a series called Cinemax Sessions on Cinemax back in the day. And I ended up being the camera coordinator on all of those shows, basically, figuring out like what the roles were for the cameras. And so that was my first my first entry into film, because those were film cameras, which is completely different than shooting on video. Because in video, you just keep going. But if it's a film camera, you only have a certain amount of time on that roll. And then you got to make sure you're not losing the close ups at the same time. And so it was a really cool job for me because it was like a puzzle working out. Okay, let's roll this close up. 1 minute later, we'll roll that one. It was like definitely tossed into the fire.
Yeah, and we definitely need that. And it's always easier and much better for us when we work with people that we really connect with and that we're able to learn from every day. And so for you to be able to be in that environment and to become or prepare you for all the stuff coming up was really great.
Yeah, no, Bruce was an incredible mentor to me. And he gave me a few directing gigs, but he said it was the saddest day of his life when I decided to do full-time directing because, I think we were a great team. We were together for 13 years, like that he was my work husband.
Wow, yeah, that's a long time. And then especially to see yourself from the start all the way to the end. And but sometimes we have to, evolve and start chasing other goals.
Yeah, I mean, I was getting older, and once I had a few directing gigs, it just felt like, like I could do this because I'd been in the chair next to the director for so long. I really started to gain a little bit of confidence, I will say, because confidence is a tough thing, like, especially for someone like me who was not raised in the business. I'm a Mexican girl from Detroit who everybody thought was Chinese. And, it was like I had a lot of insecurities.
And would you say that you also grew as an artist through all those times with him, that not only did it build your confidence, but also like your independent vision?
Yes, it definitely did. It definitely did. I could see things a different way, and I ended up helping Bruce a lot at the end, like, oh, there's a killer shot on one. He's like, ready, one take. You know what I'm saying? So we really developed a really incredible synchronicity in the booth.
Well, I did want to get started on talking about relationship goals, and congratulations on the work that you did over there.
Thank
Uh,
you.
yeah, how do you prepare for a project like this?
Well, it starts with a lot of pitch decks. you know, going through the interview process and how do you see the film and who do you see in the movie and, those kinds of things. So that's kind of like the first step is just getting the job and preparing. Like, what are the kind of looks? What's a color palette you like? Who do you see as the leads? Who are the supporting characters? What makes them specific in terms of their looks and things like that. So you really kind of go in with this vision of how you see your cast, and you pull things like, oh, this is like maybe what Annie's apartment would look like, and this is what Robin's would look like, and where does Kelly live? The lead, Kelly Rowland. Um, So it kind of started like that. But then once I got the film, I was really working with the writer in the beginning, like just, okay, within the pitch, you tell them, this is what I like about the script. This is why I feel connected. This is what I would like to change. This is where I think we can strengthen. Um, and so if they like where you're going with that, they know they can see you have a clear vision. Um, you just get started working with the writer. And I worked with her for about, gosh, I would say about 6 months. And, we finally got the script into, I think, a very shootable draft. And then, then it was the waiting game. Like, are we going to go? Aren't we going to go? And starting to do the budgets and things like that. And then when we finally got the green light, I think that was like August or September. Then we started the casting process. I used to think like, because coming from TV, everything happens so fast. And but in film, it's like, oh wow, it really does take 2 years to make a movie. So we started the casting process, which was really, really fun. And once we got the cast done, excuse me, and the dates worked out for them, we were able to set a production calendar. And so my first day on the ground in Toronto, which is where we shot the film, was basically getting in, looking at locations, and then starting location scouting. What works? What doesn't? This place we like, this place not so much. What can we find? And then it's a matter of like a giant puzzle. Like, okay, we like this location over here. What are we going to be able to shoot in that same location? It becomes like a working puzzle. And so it really starts with that and working with the art department and the DP and setting like, what is the look, pulling frames of films that we liked, what's the color palette, because when you're first pitching, it's your vision. But then once you get on board and you have a production designer, you have the director of photography, and then your producer, you're working hand in hand with your producer and your executive producer. We're all working together as a collective to, make sure we're all making the same movie. And that's kind of where the director comes in, is that you have to be very clear about what you like, what you don't like, what you think works, and then still leave yourself open for when the DP or the production designer says, hey, what about something like this? And you're like, oh my God, that's fantastic. Let's do that. It's like it's a fun collaboration, and you just keep spitballing off of each other with ideas, and we had a very, very cohesive crew, I will say.
Yeah, that I think that's one of the rewarding things about what we do is that we get to collaborate with these high level creatives and you let everybody be in their element and also, bring their A game to create this project together.
Sure, and you give them the support and the inspiration to show us their best. Same thing with costumes. Even when it comes down to hair and makeup, like what are those looks, and for each of the girls, because you want to make sure that the personalities are very distinct, obviously. And so, yeah, so that's kind of how you kind of jump into it. And then with the AD, we start figuring out, okay, we can only get this location on these days, and we can only get this location on these days. So then you start moving that puzzle around. How are you going to make it work?
And how does it feel for you as the director of this project on day one and you're on set? What is the things you look for? What is the things that you make sure you have on set with you?
I make sure that I have a great positive attitude. I make sure that I go in with thought and care for the actors and for my crew. I want to lead with joy and with passion and with fun, because like you're going to be working with these people for 6 weeks, days in and days out, long days, and you want to be able to connect and feel that you support them and they support you. So day one, it's about meeting all the crew, and you move a little bit slower on day one, definitely, because you're getting to know each other and you're figuring out things. But in terms of like how we all work together. Um, but you know, it's so exciting. Like day one, like I don't even sleep the night before. Even in TV, I wouldn't sleep the night before I started a new show, because you're so excited about this next part of the adventure, and I would say that I laughed pretty much every single day on my set, several times. Of course, I was doing a comedy, so that's a good thing.
And how do you personally gain the trust of the cast and the whole crew on this project?
By being clear what it is that you want, and more importantly, why you want it. You really have to know. But if somebody has a good idea, the camera operator says, how about if I open like this? It's like, oh, yeah, that'll work. And then, but for instance, we were doing this thing with this thing of candy. And I really wanted to open up on that candy being set into the frame. And he was like, but then you don't see Kelly. It's like, it's just a transition. Trust me, it's going to work. You know, Not that I didn't do the other alt opening, because you never know, right? But, you have to be really clear about what you want and why you want it. And you have to be flexible when somebody else has a better idea, because sometimes you can get in your own head and, you know, everybody has a good idea at some point. It's just a matter, does it work for you? Right. And being able to swing and not be like that director's like, no, 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 I don't need that. I know what I want, because I've worked with those as an AD, and it's not fun.
What would you say is the departments that you collaborate the most to make sure that you deliver what you're looking for at the end of the day?
Every single department. Props, super important. Graphics, what's on the monitors in the room? The actors, where are they coming from? Where are we going to? What's the essence of this scene? Wardrobe, that's, what I mean? Like, what are they wearing in that moment? What do we need from wardrobe? And of course, production design and lighting. Every department is involved from the get go. Even sound, of course. Sound, where are they going to put the mics? How can we do, a wide shot and a medium wide at the same time? And, so every single department is involved, almost every single day, even the seconds. Where can we put the monitors, the second ACs? You got to be very aware of those angles and where people are safe.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to a project like this, there's so many moving parts, and everybody has to, know what their role is to get the shot or just to move the project along. And
Yeah.
it's always important to have somebody like you to be the captain of this ship and to be able to direct anybody who needs it.
Yeah, 100%. And do it with kindness and respect. That's like the most important thing.
Yeah, I always appreciated seeing your name on our shows like Fuller House, Good Place, and Night Court. So yeah, I love what you bring to the stage.
Thank you. Yeah, I
Um,
bring a different energy for sure. People have
mhm.
often called me a breath of fresh air. I think it's
uh,
because I'm so excited and giddy, like something works and something's funny. I'm like at the monitor going, yes, yes, yes. You
yeah,
know,
and like that attitude or the personality that you have is like very collaborative, and it makes us kind of like tap into who we are as well to want to serve your vision too. So we want to go above and beyond for you.
yeah, yeah. I find that crews do when you give them the respect and also the leeway to bring something to the table. Like I love a prop show and tell.
For relationship goals, what would you say is one of those proudest scenes or moments that you look back and you were really excited of what you captured?
Oh man, that's a tough question because honestly, there's quite a few. Like I loved the dance sequence with the girls. I thought that it was a very freeing moment for them. I loved the scene with Kelly and Meth when they first sit down and start to talk to each other up in the lobby bar where Dan kind of sets them up, and he's supposed to meet them for, drinks, and he doesn't go, and it was an obvious ploy to get them to start talking to each other. I love the scene at the cemetery with Kelly when she comes to terms with her mom's death. It's just wow. You cry, like you just cry. That's the great thing about comedies. Like you can have those big out loud laughs and still touch the heart. You've done it all.
And I agree with you, especially because you're able to take us through all kinds of emotions just with this piece, and to be able to see or experience things with this character, it just makes that connection stronger.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and the cast was phenomenal. I mean, like our Canadian day players were killer, fantastic. And I do believe that a lot of times day players don't get their due. You know what I mean? But they're actors and they need to know what they're doing in a scene and why they're there. And the toughest thing is for them to only have one line and still get across what you need from them. So I enjoy working with actors. I enjoy actors and writers and animals and children, all the things they say directors aren't supposed to like.
Yeah, I mean, as we say, there's no small parts, and everybody has to deliver what their job is to make the project keep moving forward and in a high level as well.
Yeah, 100%.
How did you handle last minute notes, or if somebody was struggling with their job, like how did you help people out on the set?
Well, you look for solutions. You look for compromises sometimes because sometimes you have to compromise. As long as you're not compromising the film, you know what I'm saying? That's the one thing you can't do. Um, so, again, just doing it with positivity. Okay, that's not working. Great. What if we try this? And they'll say, how about this? Would this work for you? You know what? That'll be perfect. Let's go with that. It's just staying positive and being a problem solver, not a naysayer. It's really important to stay positive. It 100% is because if the director starts to go down, everybody feels that. I've been with those people that are just miserable and like nothing is making them happy. And, it's probably mostly them not knowing what they want. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, positivity wins the day.
Yeah, no, I of course understand what you're saying, and with especially with our department, we definitely never say no, even if it's something very exaggerated or very a quick turnaround. We do our best, and yeah, whatever it takes to get what they need is what we have to do.
Yeah. And I think most people feel that on set. You know what I mean? Like whatever it takes.
Would you be able to give us an example of a challenge or something that happened on set that you had to overcome and just use whatever tools you had?
I would say that some of the locations were small, and older buildings. So we had to climb up like, a flight of stairs that were like this wide. And those things took a little bit longer to do. But again, it's just patience. It takes what it takes. And, all you can do is the best you can do, right? You got to get it up there. You got to get the shots. Um, and even if you have to break the camera down to like a tiny body, like if you're shooting in a bathroom or something, um, because you're not on a stage where you can pull a wall. You're in a location. And sometimes that can be tough, like because, maybe sound and other people have to be outside in a tent. And it was winter in Toronto. And they have heaters, but it only helps so much. Um, So I would say the small spaces were the biggest challenges for us.
Okay, what would you say is the biggest takeaway from this experience for you?
The biggest takeaway, I think, is um, I haven't done a movie in, 23 years. So the biggest takeaway was, you know, gratefulness because I finally got a second, you know, and being very proud of it too. I mean, I really am. I think that the actors and the entire crew, myself, my producers, Devon and Bart, I think we all together, obviously my DP Fede and Rupert, my production designer, I think all together we really made a beautiful, funny, heartwarming film.
Yeah, and I can't wait to watch it. And
February 4th, it drops, yes, on Amazon Prime.
I'll put the trailer down below so we could so everybody could start getting ready for the big day.
Right
And
on.
congratulations. I'm really
Thank
excited
you.
and happy for you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, my family, we're definitely gonna do a watch party for it.
Okay, right on. Yes. Invite the cousins in where are they from?
Everybody's local San Fernando Valley, so we're all
Oh
gonna
no, but you
be.
have some cousins in Mexico, I thought, or something.
Oh yeah, I have family in Mexico City and Querétaro and
Yeah, yeah.
Guadalajara. Yeah,
Have them
so
be on the watch party.
oh, definitely. Well, Linda, would you have any advice for up and coming filmmakers?
Well, yeah, I mean, the bottom line is you really have to follow your passion. And and I would say to have patience because it takes a long time to get where you really want to go. There are those that somehow miraculously, do it quickly, but that's not the norm. And I think it's really about having patience and making sure that you figure out exactly which road you want to go down in production, if that's what you want to do, and then make that commitment and be willing to work your way up, go to school and then so you can be the best at your job. That's all.
Well, thank you, Linda. I really appreciate the conversation, and I can't wait to see the film.
You're welcome, Hugo. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.